Well, I think we all agree that was a delicious film on screen. Like it looks like a snack. Like literally, when I saw it, I was like, "This is amazing." Um, Thank you so much, Oliver, for letting us show this film in the UK. First of all, I would want, because a lot of people, when I tell people about this film, they're like, Mapantsula, what is that? Like, what does that mean? What can you tell us what Mapantsula means? What it means? What's the meaning of that word? Because a lot of people don't know. Do some people know here? Yeah.
Okay, well, it was not the original title of the film. In fact, the original title was a very long, pretentious title, so I won't even mention what that was. I'm glad we didn't use it. The lead character comes from a subculture, and Mapantsula was a kind of a lifestyle, but a kind of rebellion as well. It was a kind of petty criminal, and as often, criminals of a certain kind of anti-authoritarian as well. So they managed to defy some of the many laws around them and create their own universe. You know, I'm not glorifying them, but there was something rebellious about them, and they had a flair and they had a style. Now, the style, looking back now, it's fairly old-fashioned. It sort of stems from the 50s, and it was influenced by American culture and American movies as well. But the language that they had was a hybrid of South African languages, you know. It had a lot to do with Soweto, not just Soweto, but there is no pure Zulu in the film, for instance. It's mixed, and it's mixed with Sotho and with Afrikaans and so on. So it's a unique identity that existed, but the character was not political, and I think many of them were not political, and that was the whole point of the story of what happens when a apolitical person in South Africa feels the pressure so much they feel they cannot stand and look and do nothing anymore.
Amazing. And I look at Thomas Panic not Panic, how we call I felt my mom calling me Panic, like that's how literally my mom calls me. It's not, I'm not Panic, but I'm Tatenda. How she called Panic is like, his character was really pivotal in this whole case. And I know when you were saying like you did quite a bit of the casting, how did that relationship work with him? Because I could feel him being present in the situation.
Absolutely.
And how he came across the screen. How was it working with him, and how did you guys meet, and how did that synergy work?
Well, I'm so glad that that you found that you sourced this part of this interview, which was part of a documentary back then, because it shows his energy and vitality, and he really did know most of the actors. He worked with a famous Sowetan theatre director called Gibson Kente, and a lot of the actors worked either with Gibson Kente or Matsamela Manaka and other directors who were doing protest theatre. And this was what influenced me and inspired me, because in cinema there was very little happening in South Africa at the time. It was very apolitical, or people didn't make these kind of movies because of censorship or getting into trouble. So that's where the creative talent was. So the actor who played the unionist, the actor who played the bag snatcher, Vusi Debakwane, Darlington Michaels, who played his sidekick in the film. These were actors who worked in township theatre. And Dolly Ratebe, he talked about being a star. He knew all these people, and he introduced me as well to a young woman who was very soon after that became one of South Africa's biggest music stars, Brenda Fassie.
Oh, yeah.
She auditioned for the role as his girlfriend.
Oh, wow, okay.
I didn't choose her. Because I thought Tembi Mshali was better for the role.
Okay.
Looking back, it would have been a big bonus to have Brenda Fassie's name on the screen there, maybe. But so Thomas knew all these people. He'd given singing lessons to Brenda Fassie. You know, he used to be a teacher and taught people to sing as well. And then he worked for Gibson Kente. So it was my luck as a young person, and it only worked with a certain trust between us, and because we'd become friends. And because we both said, well, we've never done this before, we're going to do this, that I was introduced to all of these people.
And I feel like this film is still, although it was filmed 30 years ago, I still feel like it's very relevant today, in this time and in this day, even in the UK and nationwide and worldwide. I think it's very, very relevant. The message is still existent. But I would want to know, how are South Africans receiving it now? Is it still the same as 30 years ago? Because I know they probably didn't get the chance of seeing it 30 years ago because it was censored, and you had to steal a copy and come back with it to London. How are South Africans receiving this film now in South Africa?
Well, I think 36 years ago the film couldn't be screened widely in South Africa because the censor board demanded cuts to all the political content, and we said no, so we let it go out on VHS tape and be pirated, which means lots of South Africans saw this film through the generations, but they always saw a really bad copy of the film. And there was a better quality U-matic, but with the wrong framing and everything. And I realized a few years ago, if nothing happens, and thanks to my partner Arian, giving me the push to do this, and that we did this, that would have remained of the film. That's why this was so important. Quite a lot of people saw it last year in South Africa. We had a cast and crew screening for the first time, which sounds crazy after 36 years, but it is something that couldn't happen back then. So Thomas Mogotlane passed away a while ago, Dolly Ratebe as well, and others. But I found the families, and they all came, and they were very appreciative. And so it was very emotional, because this is their legacy as well. Yeah, if the film had just been left and reduced to a videotape and nothing left, that's not a legacy. It was important to do this. The thing with cinema audiences, it's still too expensive for South Africans generally. And this is the dilemma. It was the dilemma back then, it's the dilemma now. So we've had requests from various organizations who don't have the money, and I feel for them. I mean, we spent a lot of money, we have to get the money back, but we have to make some kind of structure that the film gets out to the audiences who can't afford it as well.
Yeah. And the music, like on the big screen, comes out so lively. How did you make decisions on that? The soundtracks and the tracks, the artist, were those original tracks, or you just
that's all original. I studied fine arts, but when I was doing that, I was a DJ as well. So I've always had a passion for music, and these were great musicians. Most of them came from a band called Stimela, which was quite famous in South Africa in the 1980s. And Dolly Ratebe sang on the soundtrack as well. She sang with them. And everything is original in the film. And there are freedom songs. But the whole soundtrack was original.
Amazing. I've got 101 questions. I'll open it to the floor. Does anyone have any questions? No? I knew it. There's one there. Yeah.
So in that interview segment at the beginning of the film, it was mentioned that a script has to be given to the censors, and then the censors approve it, and then the film goes back to the censors as well. I was wondering, the film was structured in quite an unusual way. Was that structure present in the screenplay, or was it written in a more conventional way and then edited into that structure? No,
this was the screenplay, but that's not the screenplay that we handed in for approval. Mm-hmm. That's the whole point.
Yeah, there's one question just behind you. What was the editorial process like, knowing that you were under pressure? I got it. Yeah.
In terms of censorship and stuff like that.
Yeah, like did you have like a release date that you were rushing towards, or did you just have to like get it out as soon as you possibly can?
Well, I mean, we were kind of we found devious ways to do this, but we also we were hoping that everything would work out. So we did have issues along the way. It's kind of like hiding in plain sight by pretending to make just a gangster story, but obviously you have actors running around in Union T-shirts. So the police came once and they saw the T-shirts and they wanted to know what this was. And the actors could have earned an Oscar for their performance, because they gave a whole story and said, yeah, well, we're actually making a film to show how bad these communists are and how they're destroying our beautiful society. And they bought it. They did it so convincingly. But it wasn't the end of it. Thomas mentions at the end, the police wanted a video. And our lawyer, Lauren Jacobson, sitting in the audience here somewhere, she advised, well, we have to give them a video. But in the meantime, I physically took the film out and brought it to London, to Technicolor, to be stored here. And then we gave them a VHS tape. And if I remember the story right, what happened is we waited, nothing happened, we heard nothing. And then it turned out they'd lost the copy and they were too embarrassed to admit that they'd actually lost the copy.
Any more questions in the audience? Yeah, there's just one there.
Fantastic film. Were all the people involved in the film, I'm guessing, a bit like Ken Loach's films, they weren't all actors? A lot of them seem to be just ordinary people.
They were all actors. I think most of them were very accomplished actors. I think when you see the crowd scenes, the young man leading the singing, to be honest, I don't know how much of an actor he was, but this was so much in the time and the spirit of the time that everybody knew what to do. But all the actors, even into the smallest roles, they were from community theatre groups or from bigger, more established groups. Even the actor who plays the nightclub owner, Simon Sibella, he was a filmmaker. He was a director. He was actually the first black director of note in South Africa. So talent all across the board.
Yeah, if we can just say that you mentioned about the effect it has worldwide. Do you think there's a resonance to what's happening in Palestine, to what happened in apartheid? Obviously it's a great insight to what happened in South Africa, when we only used to ever see it on the news or hear stories when people come over here, and I think, just again, fantastic movie.
Thank you.
Any more questions? I think I'll just have one more question. I think for me, getting a film like this it's quite hard because it's a restoration. It's not as simple as a film that's been filmed this year or something. Were you ever tempted to sell the rights of the film, because a retrospective like this is very difficult? Like some of the films we're looking at, it's an African story, but the rights are sitting with some guy in America in his loft, and he's never going to let it go. And they're charging ridiculous amounts for us to see our stories on screen. So were you ever tempted to let the rights go of this film along the process, along all this 30 years, or were you given an offer that you were like, okay, yeah, this is a beautiful offer?
It's the only film that I have ownership of in that sense, and it came back to me in a roundabout way, because when we had this whole censorship issue, things got a bit tense with the producer who wanted his film to be shown and the cuts to be made. I found the old documents last year, and we were totally against it. So we had quite a fallout at that time. But to his credit, in the 90s, and he was ill and he could see that he was dying, I think, and he sent me a letter, and the rights reverted back to me. And normally it's not as simple as that, I know. Yeah. But that means the responsibility lay on me to do something. Yeah.
Thank you for letting us show it in the UK. They made it really simple for us. The distributor Arian and Oliver, they really made it simple for us to be able for you guys to watch it. So thank you, Oliver, and thank you, Arian, and the team. Some guys were in the back. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity, and Congratulations again.
Thank you.
30 years later, it's still relevant. 60 years later, it's still going to be relevant. And thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.